Okay, so you ready to kick off?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
All right. Hi, everybody. So David Martin here, founder at Fantasy. I'm at my home here in Arizona, and we decided to get on a Zoom call with a couple of folks from Fantasy because when people apply for different positions, whether it's UX, UI, motion, producer positions, the most common thing that we come across is there's a lot of questions. What is it like in Fantasy? What does it look like inside the four walls? What do the people like to work with? What is the difference between a UX lead at Fantasy versus a UX lead at Google or an Apple or a different agency? So Russell, who was on this call, and I said, why not just do a little video, a little Zoom, where we'll record it like this, and we can have questions and answers, and we're just going to have a discussion, and we're going to put it out there to share, and hopefully it'll give you a little bit of shed some light on maybe some of those answers. Okay, so just a quick introduction. We have Russell Hampton. Russell, do you want to let people know what a superstar you are?
Oh, Russell Hampton. I run the experience side here in the San Francisco office. We have Ozzy.
I'm a UX lead also in San Francisco.
And we have Anjali.
Hey, I'm senior UX designer at San Francisco office.
And then across the way we have Miss Allie.
Hi, Allie here. I'm an experience lead in New York.
And Evan.
Hello, I am also an experience lead in the Big Apple.
No one's ever said that. No one's ever.
No, you
know.
Nervous.
I just want to be different.
Like
bring
So
some magic.
I'm going to help moderate this just a little bit, right? I don't really know a lot of these answers, but here we go. Okay, so again, the idea is people are unaware of what it's like to work at Fantasy, so this is to help them out. So let's start with UX, right? Because we're looking for, we've got open positions right now that are full-time and freelance and remote, of course, doesn't matter where you are, for UX leads, experience directors, and so forth, right? So the first question I've written down here is expectation versus reality, right? And please don't sugarcoat your answers here because this is being recorded or I'm on it. So say whatever the honest answer is. But what is your expectation versus before come to Fantasy versus when you got there, right? So how much did it suck once you got in?
I actually have a very good.
All right, Evan, go for it.
And I hope that this doesn't throw anyone off, but I think so actually when I first started looking for kind of my next career move, Fantasy was one of the options that came up. And because of I've been involved in design for quite a while, I knew the caliber of talent and the level of creativity that was coming out of Fantasy. And for whatever reason, I was terrified to even apply. So I was currently working with a recruiter, and I saw the posting, but I was just like, I don't know if I should apply, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to apply. I'm going to try and steer clear. And then the recruiter came to me and he's like, I have the perfect position for you. It's at Fantasy. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was terrified, but I went through the process, got to meet everyone, got to meet Firdosh, showed him my work and everything, and came on board. And as my tenure kind of progressed, I think what I ended up seeing and what I ended up essentially learning is that Fantasy was a place where you can learn and grow in some of the best and quickest ways. I think the way that it's structured, the way that we approach the work, the emphasis that we put on certain parts of the work, make it a place where you can kind of see and grow as you go, and you have the opportunity to do that as an individual owner of the work and as part of a team. So I thought that it was great.
Okay. Hopefully, if that's honest, great.
That's scripted. That was pretty good.
No, it was not scripted. It was not scripted.
That sounded a little scripted. Anyway, please shit, Evan. All right. So, but Evan, in reality, why were you truly scared though? I mean, this is the first time hearing of it, right? So why were you scared? Like, what was it?
Like, you look at Fantasy from the outside and you see like all of this like crazy work, like, you know, the attention to detail, the impressive motion, like, you know, all of these kind of like micro interactions that are super cool. Like, you know, you have people like Pontus like doing like skill shares like on Behance and stuff, and I was like, oh, I'm not at that level, you know. That all of those things can be like really intimidating to, you know, an outside purveyor or an outside viewer. You know, and I was just like, I felt that, you know, at first I was like, oh, I'm not at that level. But then you know, as you start to like break down your skills and like figure out, you know, where you kind of, and I think, you know, fantasy allows you to kind of do that. You know, I think, you know, some people even on this call, you know, are very strong in certain areas than others. And, you know, it allows for you to kind of find your niche or whatever and, you know, explore that. So.
Okay.
Yeah, it's funny because I kind of had the opposite experience to you.
You're like, I got this.
No, not necessarily like I got this, but more like I came in with zero expectations. I actually really hadn't heard much about fantasy other than Ryan brought me in, Ryan Daniels, as group director of production in New York. And he brought me in. We'd both worked at a previous agency together. And I was just like, what's fantasy? Oh, okay, cool. What's that?
Which agency did you guys work at?
Code and Theory.
Oh, Code. Yeah, okay, great.
Yeah, and so I came in with zero expectations. I was just like, oh, this sounds fun. All right. Just met with Ferdosh, Evan, and Jackie, talked about some work, showed my portfolio, came in, and then just kind of figured it out. I think I started like solo leading projects with kind of like no support. I was on Avon. There was like a discovery phase that I was leading. And then I was just dropped in and I was like, wow, this is amazing. I get so much autonomy. I don't have anybody to answer to. I can just do this project all myself and I can make all the choices and I can call all the shots. And it was just like this amazing kind of like freedom. So that was what and I mean, obviously, you know, like that was years ago. So I think, you know, we're building up more.
All right. Was there something though that we could have done, because no one's perfect, right? Every agency out there is amazing in their own way, but what are the things that we could have done better? You know, when someone kind of, you know, when you first apply to the company and, you know, and then you go through that process, where did we suck? What was it? Because I don't know, you know, I don't always hear these answers, but I want to know, what did we suck at when we met you for the first time and getting you, or if it's training you or introducing you or onboarding you? And I know we've improved a lot of that stuff dramatically, you know, over the years, but there's got to be some areas where there was some moments of some question marks.
You sure you want this on video?
Let's be honest. Yeah, people are going to find out one way or another.
Well, in like the last 3 years, we've worked on the onboarding process so much so that it's gotten to this point where, you know, like something like my first entry to fantasy would never happen now because we have so many different checks and balances and mentorship, and I don't know, we have lots of different little tasks for various members of the team to complete so that people feel super supported. So I feel like, you know, I like at this point, can we do better? I mean, sure, but have we done a lot better since I first started? Absolutely. So, I mean, all of the things that I would say do better on, we are already doing that. But
how did it feel for you, Anjali and Ozzy? Because you guys are new to the company. You started a day before each other, right?
Yeah.
Ozzy, you were a day after Anjali or something. So you guys are what, 9 months in the company?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, actually, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, to Ali's point, my experience was completely opposite. Like from start till end, like I was talking to Peter for almost over a year to even like before I said, okay, I'll join fantasy. So that whole process helped me get to know everyone. I already knew Russ, I already knew Amanda, I already knew Lindsay. So I really loved that process, that the hiring process wasn't rushed into. And because I love like fantasy doesn't hire because of sake of hiring, because we have projects. They really hire on base of talent, right? So that 1 year was such an awesome way to get to know the whole team. And my first day, I felt like I already knew everyone. And like that whole onboarding package, like we had, you know, like that to-do list that I'm sure Russ and Lindsay were like checking every single day, was really awesome. Like we get to know everyone.
What was the role that you came from to get to fantasy?
So I was creative director before. And then I came to Fantasy as a senior UX designer. Sorry? I was creative director for 2.5 years. Yeah. Your voice is really cracking up. Is it
It's
just me?
not David with a bad sound quality.
Yeah, I know, right?
Oh, that was David.
It's not crispy.
It's not crispy.
Protocol and transparency, but crispy clarity. Anyway, which company did you work with before you came to Fantasy?
So before I came to Fantasy, I was in that interim period where I was just consulting with Kodak for 6 months, but that was just a consultancy. That's why I got that awesome time frame to talk to Peter before I accept full time. But my full time was Hathaway. I was at Hathaway. It's a mobile agency down in San Luis Obispo, and they do same stuff that we do here. But the other thing is different that they have is they also have their product, in-house product called NomNom, which is ordering platform and loyalty platform. Yeah.
All right. Well, Russell, remind me about you. Where you were, I think, was it AKQA or Razorfish?
I was at Razorfish for 4 years, and then I've been at Fantasy now for almost 4 years. The process was really interesting. I was like you, I was like terrified. I saw Fantasy stuff, the USA Today stuff from way back in the day. I was like, not at that level. And I think what surprised me the most when I came in was the flexibility in the process to actually do your work and how much autonomy we actually did have, like Ali did mention.
Yeah.
It was like really, I was like, oh, so you're saying I can basically dictate how this certain process goes. And they're like, yeah, that's why we hired you. So I think like we look for people that that come in with a know-how of how to actually add to our process.
Super
and that was
self-sufficient.
really, really refreshing when I came in. It wasn't just like documentation.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh no, this is our general process. This is how we've done it in the past. And this is how we want you to sort of carry it on from here. And then feel free to modify from there on out. And I'm curious, Ozzy, you came from the dark side. You came from Airbnb, right?
Yep.
You went you swam upstream and you went in-house to then agency. Tell me a little bit what that transition was like and why you ultimately decided to go on this side.
Yeah, I actually had a similar experience, I think, to Evan, where I actually have known Peter probably 6 or 7 years, and he always would ping me, or text me and like half jokingly be like, "Hey, are you ready now?" And like every quarter, every half, he would ping me, we would be at bars and he would ask me. And so I think he just happened to reach out on the day that I was had already decided that I was leaving, and I started talking to some other companies, and he just hit the right day, and I was like, yeah, let's talk. But I think I had a similar experience where every time I go on Dribbble, for example, and I'm like, ooh, that's really hot, and then I'm like, oh, yep, of course it's a Fantasy designer, and so I had a similar experience where I'm a little intimidated, coming in. I remember coming in for a chat, which became a portfolio review with Russ and Kyle and Peter, which I was frantically trying to open Figma files. And ultimately, I think that what convinced me to switch was, I was at Facebook for 2 years and got to build a brand new product from an org from the ground up with a few team members. And ultimately, I felt like my portfolio just didn't show enough for 2 years worth of work, right? And because we were focusing on the 2 billion people that we needed to reach, but the design was very simple. The design, if you looked at it from the outside, it just looked like, oh, I could do that in a day, type of work. But the complexities were under the hood. And I think after focusing on the details for 2 years or 3 years of one thing, I was just really hungry to experience multiple companies, multiple problems, and learn different industries, which I think agencies and especially Fantasy, we have to do that every day. And that's ultimately what convinced me to switch.
But one of the things I've heard for years with agencies is typically they're places you get burnt out, right? And believe me, we've had our share of that at Fantasy years ago. I don't know, hopefully it's a lot better than it was when we first started. I burnt myself out more than once. But what today, obviously, the work-life balance is something that we're very focused on, right? You know, it's not about, okay, working all night, weekends, like, you know, the old days. But what is it truly like right now? I mean, that's what we say to people. It's not that way, but is it really that way? Because I can't imagine it's totally 9 to 5. Maybe for some people like Russ, but for others, the rest of us that have to work hard, right? It's we still got to work. But no, but what is it, Ozzy and Angie, people that are new, right? 9 months in, going from an Airbnb where they've all this phenomenal buildings set up and things they can offer employees, you know, which we just can never compete with at that level, right? But there's other things we can do that we can surpass them on in terms of the work. But the work is great, but it's not great if you have to be working non-stop all day long. So what is the truth around that? Because I know there's a perception, no matter what agency it is, that shit, I'm going to be working all day long.
I think fantasy was surprising, at least for me. Like, I'm a weird person because like I've been in agencies and in-house and startups. I'm just odd, I guess, that way. But you know, when I was at AKQA, like I was working 80 hours a week for a whole year, and I got burnt out, and I had to take 6 months off, and that was just like, and that wasn't a unique thing. That just was the norm. And I remember I was working for JSAT, and it's my first project, and Russ, I think, saw me staying late, and he asked me, he's like, wait, are you like, is the schedule wrong, or like, do we need to adjust things? Like, I think like just the fact that, you know, Lindsay, the head of producers here in the SF, and the rest of the team are so focused on like making sure that we're scoping things right helps. Yeah, sometimes I work on the weekends, sometimes I work late, and part of it is because maybe I slacked off during the day, or maybe there is more stuff to do that day. But I would say it's a more of a rarity than necessarily like the norm. And sometimes it's because I get lost in the work that I'm doing. I'm like, yeah, I have a cool idea and I want to finish it, you know, versus being told to do it, which is, I think, very different.
That's huge.
Well,
I mean,
you work in New York, right? And you work with Firdosh, our CEO, quite a lot in that team. And I know they drive, you know, things amazingly well, but it can be pretty busy. So what is your experience like when it comes to that work-life balance?
yeah, I was just going to echo that, what Ozzy was saying. I feel like it ebbs and flows. And I think that the key for me is that, you know, if I'm working extra, then it's because I know I have to get it done, not because some person is telling me to get it done. It's because I kind of have this internal clock that's saying, all right, I can get this thing done, and like this is kind of what I need to do in order to make the project succeed. And so I think knowing that like you're responsible and that you are kind of able to call the shots is really big, and knowing that it's not somebody breathing down your neck like a typical hierarchical agency where, you know, it's a lot more lean. It's a lot more kind of like, all right, you know, you do everything in your power to like bring your best and make your best work. And if that means that you need to work a little extra, okay, maybe, but I would say that it's not, for me, it's not the norm. And I would say actually, like because we hire people who are pretty senior, we're all really efficient. I mean, I don't know, Evan, you're efficient, but you work at weird hours of the day, but we're still efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and to spin off that, you know, I think my working style is kind of similar to like what Ozzy was saying. Like, you know, sometimes, you know, I think, well, let me just back up and say that I think right now is an interesting time because, you know, as we're all kind of working remote, you know, it does kind of bleed in weird ways, right? Like, because now I can easily just like roll out of bed and open my computer and all of a sudden I'm at work. And, you know, that may happen certain days at, you know, 7:15, 8:15, 9:15, you know, and then that may end at like 4:15, 5:15, 6:15. So, you know, I think,
or 3 in the morning if you need.
Or 3 in the morning, yeah, or 3 in the morning. And then
that's rare. That's rare.
And then there's the whole kind of like self-responsibility aspect where, you know, everything is kind of like on your shoulder. So like whatever you want to get done, you can kind of chunk it out or break it out whenever. Like if you need to, you know, take off at like 3:30 to go do something, but then you're going to hop back on from like 10 to 3 in the morning, you can do that as long as like it's ready for the next day. Yeah. I will say though, sorry, just one last thing. I will say that I think a lot of it ebbs and flows in respects to the client and their preparedness as well. So, you know, them coming in, having all of their ducks in a row and having all of those things figured out definitely adds to, you know, what is put on your plate to present back to them in a formalized way to make, you know, your ideas kind of go smoother or get, you know, recognition up their org chart, so you can kind of continue on the project. So I think there are a lot of variables to that, but, you know, I think it's all manageable.
Well, let me ask all of you. Go ahead, Anthony.
Another perspective on work-life balance. So like we've all talked about like working hours and whatnot, right? But I want to just highlight the team effort that goes into bringing a work-life balance. Like if you're going through something that's personal or whatnot, and you really need to like divide your time and attention, truly I've experienced that support here at Fantasy. Like everyone jumps in right away to help me out, you know, like again, don't want to go into that part, but like we are here to support each other so much. And that's what true work-life balance is. Like, okay, it's not just us figuring it out, like whether our work-life balance is true or not, but it's also like making sure that our teammates are not burning out and they're supported at every step of the way, you know?
Yeah.
It's amazing to hear. I know well, before we press record on this call, because, you know, we just had this idea yesterday. You guys don't really know what all these questions are going to be, but, you know, Ali mentioned that you guys have been getting to know each other better, you know, over Zoom and COVID, strangely enough, you know, because everyone works in different offices, of course. But how is it that someone that applies today to work in anything in Fantasy, are we at a disadvantage because technically we're not in the same office, we're remote, where we're all creative people and we want to be working very closely together and bantering off each other? Does it really work? Is this a temporary thing with Zoom? You know, do we need to get back to the office really quickly? I know some people really want to, some people don't. I mean, what is the truth?
Yeah, I can answer that. Fantasy was really unique when all this craziness happened because we have people in San Francisco, New York, Miami, London, here we go, Moscow, Australia, Estonia, Egypt, Vietnam. Did I miss anybody? Maybe I did. Barcelona, yeah, Nikita's in Barcelona, Italy, and with Eduardo, yeah. So like all those people, we were already set up to work in a very remote lifestyle where we actually have a lot of these calls and do a lot of visual communication. So it wasn't necessarily a huge shift. However, I'd be naive to say it's not this. It isn't the same, right? But we were already set up like this, and we already work in a very collaborative way with people across offices. Doesn't matter if you're physically present at the same time.
I think we empathize more with the remote employees, like, you know, coworkers more, because like we're also remote. Like, I remember when I first started, like sometimes we weren't considered necessarily the time zones, and our designer wouldn't tell us that it was pretty late, and all of a sudden one day we figured it out and we're like, holy crap. But now we all have to be remote, and I think we can empathize actually better.
All right, awesome. All right, let's kind of move on to the next question then. What's the work like? I mean, you've got all these fancy reels of work, right? And I know a lot of this work is 2 years, 3 years old, even though it just went out the other week. And a lot of the work we're working on is super secret, so don't say anything that you shouldn't say. I could bleep it out, of course, if you say anything, so it doesn't matter.
Should we do that just so you can bleep it out? It's always fun.
I could bleep it out. I could bleep it out. So it doesn't matter whatever you say, I'll bleep it out, but just bear that in mind. But what is, so for example, let's say, an agency hangs up this carrot of, come over to Fantasy, you can work on all this amazing stuff. Then you come over and you're stuck in some, CMS platform for Walmart, right? Is that the case of Fantasy, or not? I mean, what's the kind of work that you do? Is it some of the work sucks? Some of it's really good? Is it that you work in a project, 5 at the same time, 1 at the same time? Like what is the setup?
It depends on who you ask.
Garage door, as you can see here.
Yes.
I mean,
truth is finally revealed.
Oh my God.
It's okay, Connie, come on in. I'm just
being too loud.
It's going to go public and all that kind of stuff.
That's so funny. Wow.
Amazing.
This is how you know I'm in a real garage here. Like,
Instagram versus reality.
there's my cleaner putting out stuff. Thanks, Connie. I'll close it. Don't worry. I'll just leave this in. I won't even bleep it out.
No.
Hold on. Wait a second. The studio is coming back. Hold on.
This is so funny.
Focus in.
Watch perception.
Damn.
Wow.
Did it not go like this?
Well done.
Wait for it. Wait, the
Hold
light
on.
needs to go off behind you.
Hold on. I need to. There we
It's the
go.
garage door light.
Terrifying.
Oh, the garage. Hold on, let me turn it on.
Yeah.
Hold on.
This is not a call to go over
Feels-
David's new LinkedIn photo. Like,
There we go.
Oh, there we go.
There we go. Back in the
That
studio.
is-
oh, now I can see you. Oh, okay.
There we go.
Is that
Now
better?
the
Yeah.
Iron Man cave has
Oh,
resumed.
God. There we go. Sorry about that. That's transparency for you. Living the dream in a caravan park here.
That's the headquarters, right? That's
All right,
right.
where are we? Sorry.
The
I mean,
work.
I
At
think
the
I,
work.
The work.
I can answer the second question because you gave us a softball, which is everybody at Fantasy, well, with the exception of Russ, but all of us at least are dedicated to one project, which is really refreshing from an agency perspective. So I would say that is extremely wonderful to just give it your all, give that one project everything, and feel like you can really dedicate yourself to something. I will say that there are definitely, projects I've loved and projects I have not loved. So it's kind of a mixed bag. I'm not going to say everything is, the most impressive work I've ever done in my life, but I definitely have had a lot of wins throughout. So, but
What was tell me the worst project and the best one.
There's
Ooh.
some projects that I've loved that Allie hasn't loved, and Allie's loved
Yeah.
that I haven't loved.
yeah, that's actually so true. That's so true. Yeah, Evan and I have really differing interests in terms of projects. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think off the top of my head. But also,
Well,
aren't we not supposed to say what?
Yeah, I know. Like beep,
There,
beep,
because
and
people are gonna,
beep.
when they get hired, we're going to come in, they're going to find out anyway. So let's just tell everybody right now. So, like, for example, worst project, best project, how long are your average projects? What, I mean, I'm interested in working at a fantasy in UX, right? So I really want to know the truth. How many, am I focused on one project at a time? Have I got 5 at a time? How long are they? What are the clients like? How much exposure do I get to the clients? That's what kind of impact can I really have?
All right, let me just tell you this story. This is pretty nuts. Like, this is like fantasy in a nutshell. We get the RFP from Abbott, which is kind of a European health provider. So, like, literally within weeks, we spin up this crazy workshop in Switzerland with all of these healthcare officials. Me, Ryan, Ferdosh, and I want to say like Jackie. We all flew out to Switzerland, and we're like basically running this entire discovery workshop. It was me, Jason, Ferdosh, and I think one other, I can't remember who else, but we were all in Switzerland doing this crazy workshop, and we were like running the workshop and then overnight churning out other documents and then coming back and presenting kind of our findings like the next day. So that was like a crazy time. But it was fun because we were in Switzerland doing it, but, it was definitely a large effort. But I think, I'm not necessarily super interested in healthcare. So that was, it was a great experience, but not a project that I would consider an awesome project. I think probably one of my favorite projects that I've done here would be kind of the concepting work that we did with them, where we essentially partnered with them to basically try and redefine what the companion app would be. I don't know. Oh, you're thinking the project that I'm currently on is, I don't know what the slide
It's going to
thing
beep
was.
out what you said.
I just
Yeah.
beep it.
Oh,
Oh
sorry.
yeah, definitely beep it.
Oh yeah, definitely
With a
beep
big
that out.
NDA flashing.
Yeah.
But I would say like that was the best project because I think we were able to really, it was like pure concept, and it was like, what could this really be, and like the form that it took, and the people that we got on scene in terms of like the animation and like the experience that we kind of created and crafted was like amazing. So, and I thought the client was pretty cool too. So it's
Okay, anyone else?
I feel like it's harder, I think, for Anjali and Anazi, who've been here, 9 months.
I'm very biased.
Very
I
biased.
I feel like the projects I've worked on have been like absolutely awesome. Like I think I can talk about JSAT. They're a Japanese telecom, and the clients are really fun to work with. They basically want us to fix the telecom industry or broadcasting industry in Japan, which is super fun. And we've been working with them for actually almost the whole time. So I think like 8 months, 7 months at this point. And so that was awesome. And then now I'm working on a client project I used to work at the company, but the stuff we're doing at Fantasy is beyond cooler than anything I ever did at the company as internal,
Wow.
which is super, like, it's bananas because it's like super secretive, you know, even internally. And then Fantasy, you know, our team is really spearheading, like pushing the boundaries really, and what, you know, what they're thinking about and how they're thinking about it. So I think it's been awesome to see that, like, I'm at Fantasy, but I'm working on these massive products still.
And you know, something that's interesting about that too, and something that's I think important to know in this like conversation, is that you have this like perception that, you know, all that these other companies, these other like, you know, really big companies are like, oh, look at the baby.
Mom had to go to pick up Maverick. So this is Phoenix. Sorry for interrupting. I'll introduce her
so
after.
Cute.
Go ahead.
But I was gonna say, like, the interesting part is like you think about all of these kind of big box companies that are doing interesting work, and you know, you think that it's happening only inside their walls, but like come to find out, like bigger companies are contracting companies like us to really do like cooler stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So like not everything's happening always in house. Sometimes cooler small agencies get to touch it.
It's weird because I think you're surprised when you realize like, oh, they're coming to us to completely redefine their
Right.
problem. Like I was talking the other day, and like almost the 4 years I've been here, it's been digital ecosystems from scratch, live TV experiences from scratch. It has been car dashboards from scratch, the future of mobility from scratch, the future of fantasy football from scratch, like museums for the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures from scratch, an app inside that museum with AR from scratch. Like I can keep going, but like the common theme with a lot of our projects is people don't come to us for a quick redesign, like you said, David, of like the Walmart CMS, but Walmart will come to us and ask us to completely take it from the ground up. And I think that's what's really, really challenging at Fantasy, is because there's no like structure in place how to do something that hasn't been done before and really start from scratch. And that's, I think, the lack of process and structure, but that's where we come in and we benefit from that because we're also senior here. We're able to work together to figure it out and actually create something better than we could, you know, separately. So I think when you look at all the projects, like, yes, there are some projects that are better than others, but because you're working with all these people that are so good at what they do, you inherently learn and grow from those projects, even if they are the worst projects you've had at Fantasy.
That sounds like the magic answer. You know,
Not scripted.
It's true. I mean, it's one of the things
Yes.
I'm most proud of is that if you think about the type of work that we get to work on, I mean, we are like a less than a, you know, 120 people agency. And a lot of people, clients, when they meet us for the first time, they think we're 1,000, 2,000 people. They have no idea. Like we're tiny, but we get these opportunities. I mean, we just won, as you all probably know, this major project the other day where we beat out the 8 best agencies on the planet. And the fact that we've won that after such a painstaking, huge process to kind of get there, was unbelievable. By the way, this is Phoenix. She is 11 months old, and I told mom I'd be off the call by 2:45, so I can go and pick up my son. But she obviously had to leave this one here because you got to get in a line in a queue in the heat here in Arizona to pick up Maverick, and she can't just be in this queue this long outside in the heat. So anyway, that's why I got dumped. This is not staged. I literally got dumped. Dumped on me. Anyway, okay. So look, to be an experienced director of Fantasy, to kind of start to wrap this up, you know, that's an important role for us. For me, I know it's one of the hardest roles we try to find. And, you know, I know we're picky, but at the same time, good people, good attitude, proactivity, head and the shoulders is super important. The work doesn't have to be always stellar out of the bat, because once you're in Fantasy 3-4 months, you realize, wow, the work and the presentation level that people do, you know, bumps up quite a bit, right? So it's more how you apply yourself. But you know, what does it take? What you know, if you want to be an experienced director of Fantasy, what does it take? What are we looking for? Who is that person?
Inspiring. Someone who can daily inspire people, everyone in the team, and like empowering the team members too, like inspiring them and letting them do what they're really good at. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
I would say thrives in ambiguity and loves ambiguity and loves to put structure in place that allows the team to do their best work and do it together, I think is a really important skill set, regardless of the challenge that you're being asked. Getting that ambiguity, you'll get in spades here at Fantasy. So being able to come in and wanting that and seeking that and figuring that out with a really senior team is, I think, something that we would probably look for in that sort of candidate.
Yeah, I'd also say somebody who is dedicated to investing in their team. So somebody who's going to build other people up, build up their reports, build up anybody else who is in UX or visual or other disciplines. Just somebody who's going to kind of celebrate the successes of whoever else is around them. We're a really supportive team and we care about each other. And I think that's part of what makes Fantasy really wonderful. And that's kind of why I started off the conversation saying, wow, we are all best friends now that the pandemic's happened. But yeah, and it's not just about a fluffy way of saying culture fit, because I know that term is really loaded. What I mean to say is just somebody who genuinely cares about other people and cares about their work.
Yeah.
Well, I think it goes with what you just said, Ali, but like, I think that we're too small for directors to be like, hey, that's not my role. That's not my job. Like,
Yeah.
I see on a daily basis, like Russ is prototyping and, designing and critiquing. Like there is nothing that is not part of your role because you're the owner ultimately of the project, the client, and the team. So like, I think like if you're used to a role where your job is basically just to call the shots and not get your hands dirty, then maybe we're not a good fit. At least from what I've seen, and what my day-to-day also looks like, I think matches that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I would say,
go ahead, Evan.
no, I was just gonna say, like even to Ozzy, your point of getting your hands dirty, like that resiliency, like needs to be there. You need to be, I think the fantasy way is like a true kind of way of life. Like you have to kind of push the envelope, like think outside the box, like always have that hunger to be, to take the ordinary and make it extraordinary, but like for real though,
Yeah.
not in a corny, like cheesy way.
That's their new commercial. But like for real.
All right, so guys, I think we are at least half an hour into this conversation. I think, maybe we shed a little bit of light, and I would say to anyone interested in working here, that's looking at these roles, you're watching this video because we sent it to you, but anyone at Fantasy that you can find on LinkedIn will be happy to, I assume, answer any questions. And again, we try to make this as transparent as possible. None of this is scripted, obviously. And we just want to help you to find a home. So whether it's here, whether it's somewhere else, whatever it may be, but as my mom says, what's meant for you will never go by you. So with that said, I think we could wrap up unless anyone wants to add any words of wisdom.
Join Fantasy. Seriously, it's an awesome team to be part of.
You'll learn the most.
Yes,
guys.
Hugs and babies.
All right. Well, we'll press stop from here.
Okay.
Thank you all for joining us. I know it was last minute, and this is just a quick idea we had. We'll put it out there. We'll see how embarrassing it is, but if it helps just one person, click us. That makes a difference.
Welcome to Fantasy.
This is great.
Welcome to Fantasy.
We'll fix it in post.
Yeah.
Fix it
all right.
in post.
Well, thanks all for joining. Thanks for
you.
Russell. Thanks for setting it up as well, buddy.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Take care.
All right,
everybody.
guys.
Bye, guys.
Happy Wednesday. Is it Wednesday? It is Wednesday. Happy Wednesday, everyone.
Happy Wednesday.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.